I'm going to call the meeting. And just to remind everybody, we are audio and video recorded, so please do not share anything you don't want everyone else to be able to see. May I please have an approval of the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Roll call. Joe,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Jeremy.
Aye.
Thank you. Any public comments? No hands raised? No. Okay, public comment has been opened and closed. And now review, discussion, and potential adoption or motion for the following town meeting warrant articles. Article 1, primary sponsor select board receipt of reports, and I will ask our director of finance to take us through this, please, Brian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hope everyone is doing well. Maria, are you going to share the screen?
Yep.
Thank you.
Just 1 second.
There we go.
So Article 1 is just receipt of various reports from departments and committee as printed in the annual town report. So typically every year there's a motion made to move that the reports of the various departments and committees is printed in the report or as it may come before the meeting be accepted and filed with the permanent record. So we'd ask for a positive motion on this particular article, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions or comments?
No. Motion to accept.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call. Joe,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Denise, I thank you. Motion to adopt, accept or whatever. Okay. Number 2, unpaid bills, please. Brian,
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as most of the FinCom is aware, when we close the year in June 30th and then through July 15th, we can pay prior year bills. And then after that, we can encumber them if we have them. What you have before you is a list that were bills were either received untimely or due to some transition in some of the departments. Were not POs to encumber the funds from the prior year were not asked for in a timely manner. So if you remember last year, the general fund had a substantially higher number than this based on due to that ongoing transition in the Department of Public Works. This year, the general fund has $13,197 in unpaid bills. The Island Home, can you continue down? Has 55,000. Most of this is related to some of the ongoing transitions and not only the administrator, but in transitioning to more help from Eisenstein and Flaherty. They have 55,000 in the enterprise fund for our Island Home. The solid waste department, solid waste did find a couple bills. One majority of that was related to some discussions around contracts with ACB and environmental, and they unfortunately did not encumber that entirety of that. So we do have some unpaid bills in the solid waste enterprise fund, $16,616. Sewer enterprise fund missed a small invoice to South Shore Generator Service, $332. And then the airport had some work done to the access control panels, and that invoice was unfortunately not encumbered in time, and that's $6,495. And if you could go to the top of the page, please, for me, Maria. As noted here, the general fund, we're recommending taking that from free cash. The $55,000 we're recommending be appropriated from retained earnings in the Island Home, and the $16,000 for solid waste be paid for retained earnings from there. Consistent with policy, all of these should be from retained earnings of the various enterprise funds and free cash from the general fund. So we would ask for a positive motion to authorize us to be able to pay these bills after town meeting. I would note to the committee that at town meeting, this would require a 4/5 vote.
Hey, Brian.
Yes.
Sort of a dumb question, but these are unpaid bills that were unpaid as of June 30th, 2022, right? So I presume
Yes.
they've all been paid. It's just
They
It's
have
just-
not been. We lawfully cannot pay them because after July 15th, if you have
Oh.
not made an encumbrance, I have no lawful appropriation, so I cannot pay them.
got it.
Every
So these
vendor has
people-
been notified, but they have not physically been paid.
Okay, so they all have to wait till town meeting.
Yes.
Got it.
Brian. This happens every year, a like amount?
most years are substantially smaller than this, but some of this is related to an ongoing, some of it is related to the transition at the DPW. The finance department was never presented the bill from the Boston Globe. That one I do know about because it was related to some advertising work we did. It happens there's a lot of times billing departments don't send them out or don't necessarily understand the timing of the fiscal year for municipalities, Jeremy, and their billing departments work on a different cycle, and we statutorily after the 15th with no PO requested have no lawful way to pay them.
So basically, everybody's got to pay within 30 days of the end of the fiscal year or submit their bill within that time. Or
They
they've
don't
gotta-
necessarily have to submit their bill within that time, but the departments need to have made sure that they've made a provision via a purchase order for the bill in case it arrives after that time, after the 15th of July. That's the lawful cutoff for us, is the 15th of July.
Wow.
Peter, you had a
Yeah,
question?
Brian, Eisenstein, Flaherty, and who was the other one? Margaret Combe.
Yep.
Are these bills that they just didn't issue until after the period?
It was bills that were not issued. They were not issued until after, they were issued after July 15th, and unfortunately, with the transition at the Island Home, no one made provisions for those, and we were unaware that there was all of that going on. And Margaret Combe is the new medical director there and didn't understand the process. So that one is not going to happen in the future.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Curtis, you had a question?
I just wondered, do we get charged interest on these unpaid bills?
Some may try to charge interest, but we never pay interest, and we.
You know, you're talking.
That's right. All right, motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second,
Second. That's what I meant.
All right, Joe,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Jeremy,
aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Denise, I.
And Chris is on too.
Oh, Chris, Chris?
Yeah, I'm gonna recuse because the hospital's owed about $60 on here or something, so I don't.
All right, Chris, thank
I
you.
don't-
So honest.
You should pay it.
Good. Okay, Article 4.
So this one, I'm gonna ask before I go through this, Madam Chair, that if Maria, if you could scroll down. Because we do need to make a change, and I did not get a chance to talk to Maria before I returned from vacation on this. The municipal aggregation operational adder, actually, we are going to recommend a change to 250,000. That actually will be an increase that will be coming before you at a later FinCom meeting, Madam Chair, to raise it in the current year. So we were going to request that to be made to 250,000 because the program has been very successful with rebates for residential solar systems. So, and potential use for some installation of additional charging stations. So that if you could make that change, Maria, and then I'll go through it all.
I don't think she can easily do it now, but
That's fine.
when we make the motion, we'll make sure that it's.
It doesn't, yeah, it doesn't let me.
Okay.
No.
No, that's fine. Okay. So then if you would scroll back up to the top, Maria, that would be, I would greatly appreciate it. And thank you for that understanding, Madam Chair. So before
Okay.
you have, as the committee is aware, revolving funds is monies that are dedicated for specific purposes, do not come into the general fund. There's a list here that was established pursuant to a bylaw in section 1921. These are the revolving funds that have been established, the revenue source, the authority, and then the use of the funds and the limits. It's important to note that once town meeting adopts these limits, these are the limits for these particular revolving funds. The only way that they could be increased if it was necessary is to come before both the Finance Committee and the Select Board, and both have to jointly agree to increase the spending limit in the fiscal year after town meeting takes action. So if anyone has any specific questions about a particular one, I'd be happy to answer those.
Brian, I just was curious, again, could you just go over why a particular revenue raise and spending is in this structure as opposed to the general fund?
So if you take like beach permit sticker sales, they're specifically there's a limitation on what they can be used for, and so we segregate it into that so that we can identify and adhere to those rules and regulations. Most of these are, as you can see, are specifically related to very specific services, septic system inspections. There's fees and costs associated with that, and we charge staff time specifically to cover, the fees are designed to cover those specific staff times.
So another way of thinking about it is because these are a collection of fees, it's easier to calculate the costs in this structure as opposed to within the general fund structure.
That would be another way to look at it, yes.
Okay.
It's like a stabilization fund, Brian. I'm just
Yeah.
kidding.
Oh, Jill's on fire today.
Ah.
And I would note at the bottom of this, Madam Chair, we have made a highlight or an asterisk to this. We are asking in a subsequent article, this would be adopted beforehand, so we have noted that there is a bylaw amendment to rename this. We've renamed it here, where we're requesting, or actually, I'm sorry, it was sewer housing before. We requested to rename it Public Works Housing in Article 71, and we're just
Yeah.
noting with an asterisk here that this would be adopted before that change, so that people are aware of that.
Okay,
Brian, I had a question on the airline fuel or airport aviation
Sure.
fuel.
Absolutely.
So this is a little more than fees. It's the working capital to purchase all of this fuel, right?
This fund holds the receipts from the sale of fuel, and then is also the fund that purchases the fuel. Once they reach the cap of 6,900,000, every dollar above the cap is then put into their general operations in the airport. And this was set up about 9 years ago.
Another way of thinking about it is they've got a $6.9 million revolving capital fund to buy and sell fuel.
And make repairs to the fuel farm. That's correct.
any other questions for Brian? Okay, so with the change on the municipal aggregation operational adder to 250,000, may I have a motion, please?
Motion on the change.
To adopt with the change.
Okay,
There we go.
So-
That was the motion. I was
yeah,
looking
yeah,
for.
okay, so moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second,
Thank you. Joe,
aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Jill,
Hi,
Chris,
Aye.
Jeremy.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. 7, personnel compensation plans for fiscal year 2024, please.
So as
Okay.
most of the committee is aware, we do have union and non-union personnel and staff. This is all non-full-time staff such as lifeguards. The call fire department is on here, call EMTs, per diems at the Island Home, per diems for paramedics, registered nurses, our CSOs are on here as well. You could scroll down, and then also, could you scroll, and then also on here is, keep scrolling, if you would, please, Maria. I think also included in this is and Schedule C is a compensation for elected officials, being the moderator, select board chair, and select board members, as well as the town clerk. And this is adjusted, yes,
Oh, go ahead, Brian.
no, go ahead, Madam Chair.
My understanding is the town clerk number may be up to 150,000 at the time it's being for town meeting. Is that correct?
I emailed Libby about that yesterday and
Okay.
she said just to keep it as it is.
Okay, all right. So we had a discussion about this last week, Brian, that it potentially would need to be higher. So, but if
Okay.
Libby says leave it there, then let's leave it there.
What, Brian, what are I didn't go through and do the division, sort of what sort of percentage increases have we adjusted all these various hourly rates?
To be very honest with you, Joe, I was not involved entirely in this position, and this is usually done by HR, but I would suspect that these are, some of these are substantial increases to try to be able to attract people for these.
Well, that's
Most likely,
what I'm sort of wondering is whether they were, 3 or 4% kind of below inflation, or whether some of them were adjusted to try to,
can you scroll down to the motion, Maria? Because we can look right there, and I can tell you based on that. So I mean, in like, oh, go ahead up here. they all look to be right around what, 5%, I think is somewhere in there is what we were doing. 20 to 21 is what, that's $1, so that's
5%.
5%.
And so how many people does the town need to hire? Or open positions to hire that are reflected in this compensation schedule? We're looking
So
at.
there's
10,
about
20?
There's about 200 seasonal positions that we would hope to fill in a year in a strictly seasonal basis between CSOs, lifeguards, and so on and so forth. And then there's per diem positions at our island home, the call firefighters, we could always use more. There's never a point where I would say, Jeremy, that we're fully staffed with all the positions on this. We don't fill every seasonal positions. As an example, DPW has struggled to fill people, and they have a definite need for seasonal workers.
So let's just continue on this if you could, on the metrics. How many people does this touch? We need to hire an additive 200. How many employees already are?
Well, there's about 650 full-time employees between town, school, and everyone. And this would touch any of the 200 seasonal staff that is here for a transient period of time, say from May to October, or whenever those schedules might work.
So this is really the schedule to attract 200 seasonal workers.
This is a schedule to attract seasonal workers, call firefighters, on-call call paramedics, per diem help at the island home. The veterans agent is on here as well.
And how did the town come up with the 5% increase number? What was their process in figuring out that these are the right numbers?
A lot of the discussions for this change are really between HR and the department heads, and trying to come up with some type of starting and then flow through to second, third, and fourth season numbers that would be hopefully a little bit more to attract people, because we can't provide housing to every one of these people. So, I mean, obvious, but we also can't pay everybody $50 or $60 an hour to be a seasonal employee. So there's just a real discussion between HR and town administration on where they think that number should be, and what the difficulties were with hiring in the previous years. I mean, due to our location, I'm not sure that we're ever going to be able to hire every seasonal position that we need to fill on a year-over-year basis.
So last year, for example, of the 200 roughly people that you needed, how many unfilled positions were there?
If I had to venture a guess, and hopefully nobody holds me to it, probably 30% were probably unfilled at one point or another throughout the year.
So we
The
needed.
CSOs and lifeguards are probably the easiest two positions to fill, but you know, like I said, DPW needs seasonal help and they can't find anybody. You know, I'm sure that the report has a little easier time, but there's still, everyone struggles to fill seasonal positions, with the exception of really lifeguards and CSOs. And I'm sure if you asked them, they probably would take even more if they could.
So I thought that the CSOs were funded from a separate state fund from, as I recall, from one of our.
Well, they are. They're funded partially from the ferry embarkation fee, but any overage over that authorized amount is paid out of the general fund. And this is regardless of funding source. This is the table that allows them to be paid the rate that they're paid.
Are there any other questions for Brian? Okay,
Motion to adopt?
Second,
Joe,
Aye.
Peter,
aye,
Jill,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Denise, I thank you very much. Okay. The next agenda item is discussion of any articles not yet mentioned. As there are none, the next meeting is, there's nobody else here. The next meeting is on Thursday and it's fully on Zoom.
Yes.
Just to remind everybody. So, any committee reports from anyone?
No.
Okay, seeing none. Any other business? Seeing none, let's thank our participant, our audience. Thank you, Curtis, for
Yes,
being
Curtis, you did a
here.
nice job today.
Later.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Joe.
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Hi,
Jill,
Hi.
Chris.
Aye.
Thank you. Denise, I, Maria, Brian, thank you very much as always for the great preparation, and we'll see you on Thursday.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, everyone.
thank
One
you,
minute.
guys.
That could be a